Good Monday morning, all you guys. Oh my goodness, it is like the last Monday of July. It is flying by. I can't believe that school starts in just a couple weeks. Insane, you guys. But you guys listening to Author Talk with me, Amy, Russell, and Valerie this morning. Valerie is back. We're excited to hear all about your writing camp that you
Yes.
did, Valerie. But let's talk about the weekend, you guys. So
Mhm.
it's back to being hot as hell here in Texas,
Oh, yeah.
but it's like a humid hot as hell. Okay. And with random
Yes.
rain every now and then, you never know what you're going to get every day, which is,
Sure.
I find it to be a really nice thing, not when you're at the pool, but it is
Yeah.
a really nice thing. But this weekend, I did a day trip to San Antonio for my niece's birthday. They turned
Mhm.
10 and 6. So we did a day trip. We went to Main Event, partied, hung out
Oh,
for a little bit, and then came back and just living it up and relaxing. And then, Josh keeps mentioning this thing about laundry, but I'm just ignoring him. I'm just choosing to ignore him and his little mention about laundry and not his snarky comments that come with it. But it was a relaxing weekend. I will say, with Josh working from home, it's really throwing off my days, okay? And my schedule. It's really throwing me
mhm.
off. So it's, one of those things I'm still acclimating to it. But what all did you guys do? How did it go? What adventures awaited you guys this weekend?
You go
Russell, go
first,
ahead.
Valerie. Okay, I'll go.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I
Yeah.
have a question. So, if let me put you in this hypothetical situation. So, it is dark outside, and you're walking your big uh, puppy, and someone pulls into the apartment that would be perfect if it was for 25 years olds, but not 68-year-old apartment. A young woman is pulling into the apartment garage in a very expensive SUV, and you can hear something breaking on that motor, but obviously she doesn't know it because she's still driving around in it, and she goes and parks. Do you A, go tell her and totally scare her as you walk up to her? Do you B, just go back to your apartment, see something else? What do you do? Valerie, what do you do?
I don't know. You were just walking the dog though, right? You're just walking the
Yeah, but
dog.
it's dark and it's in an big
Yeah,
parking
yeah.
garage and nobody else is out there.
Yeah. I don't know if she was maybe outside her car or something. You're like, excuse me, I don't know if you noticed, but your car is making a bad noise. It's almost like when people leave their gas cap off or something, and you're trying to tell them like, hey, your gas cap is off.
Right.
You left your lights on. We've had to tell our neighbors across the street, like, you left your garage door open and it's 10:30 at night. Did you know? I
Yeah,
don't
but
sometimes
that's the neighbor. That's not some old man. And by the way, I was walking the dogs. I was in like an old white t-shirt, so I looked even worse than I am. So
I
what's
don't
you?
know.
So Valerie, does that change your answer?
I
And
don't know. I mean,
good morning,
not
Jonathan.
necessarily.
Good
Hey,
morning. Sorry to be delayed. A little technical difficulties here.
it's,
It's all
it's
good. We're just talking
Monday.
So,
It's
about
okay.
our weekends. And then
so
Russell had
Valerie,
a question.
so Valerie, what's your answer? Is you don't know, right?
No, I would say if you're close enough that she might have seen you
No,
and
I'd
you
had
could,
to walk over there.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, but just if she was still outside like unloading, just like, hey, by the way, your
Yeah,
car's making a really bad noise. Did you
don't
hear
get
it?
too close. What do you say, Amy?
I would go tell her.
Okay, you just go tell her.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you also want me to walk up to all those young women with those tattoos that I find
okay,
interesting,
Russell,
and that
I
would
wasn't
You have
really
a
creep
thinking
them
dog,
out.
I
but
wasn't
you have a
thinking.
dog, so it's not like you're threatening with the dog
Well, I mean,
too.
okay, so my point of view was going to be one, Russell, I didn't think of it from like, I don't know. It like if I have a guy ask me, like if I had tattoos, ask me about my tattoos, I wouldn't
Right.
find it creepy, but that's just me. Like I wouldn't find you creepy is where my mind went. You went to creepy. I didn't. But
Mhm.
also, I don't I mean, I know I have green hair, but I don't really find myself to be intimidating looking. So I feel like if I just approach her and I was like, hey, like I was hearing some really weird noises, or what I would do is if I was still hearing it, like while she was parking, I would probably record it and then play it for her. So I'd been like, hey, this is actually what I was hearing. So then she doesn't really think I'm, need to
Right.
be committed. But I would tell her I would want to know if it was me, I'd want to know. So I
Okay.
would do it.
Valerie, it's your weekend story now, or Jonathan.
Well, I am just recovery mode from 4 weeks of summer camp teaching creative writing. So Saturday was kind of just a catch up and take my time going to the store, take my time doing all these errands, not like rush, 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 rush. So it was kind of cool. And then just helping our son move into his new apartment with his girlfriend, and I mean, I'm sorry, new house. And that was
Was
about the
that a
biggest
Freudian
thing.
slip? That's pretty funny.
Yes,
So
it was, but it was just kind of chill. I chilled out, just even to the point where we stayed home and watched a movie and made our own cocktails, and because we were just that tired, we're just like, ugh.
I love
I
it.
think sometimes you
Amy,
need a
of
piece.
course, Valerie made her own cocktails.
Cocktail.
We know it.
Yes,
Jonathan, she's like a margarita machine over here.
I
Oh my God.
I love it. I
That's
love
perfect.
it. You never
so
know what
nothing
you're gonna
exciting.
get. You never know with Valerie, and I love it. You just never know. I love it.
Full of surprises.
Yeah. Jonathan, what did you do this weekend?
What did I do? Very little. It was a recovery weekend for me as well. I've been pretty busy in the past several weeks, and so I just chilled out. Um, Nothing. Several weeks ago, my weekend, I went off to Malibu and performed poetry, and that was fun. But
Do
that
you
was.
surf?
I'm sorry.
Do you surf?
Did I star?
Do you
Surf.
surf?
Did you go
Oh,
surfing?
surf. Oh,
Surfing,
surf to the
surfing.
Malibu. No, no, I did not. I surfed the verbal waves, but not the literal waves.
I do love surfing on the California coast. And are you an antique collector? Because those are antique law books behind you.
They certainly are. They are law books that I don't use, but they look legally. They look legalish.
I
I
like
show you
it.
what my actual and that's another room in the house. That's the library. That portion of it is dressed as a set for when like local television comes to interview me and that kind of thing, or
Oh,
at
that's
my
cool.
virtual background. If I showed you what
Mhm.
my actual office looks like, you'd be horrified.
Well, it can't look worse than mine. I've had birthday party design, everything in here. So I can relate and I understand. I can
Yes.
100% relate. But you guys, I do have exciting news before Russell. We throw it to Russell to do his little spiel that he always does. We are finally going to get the answers and the insight for Mr. Russell over here into the romance arena, cult, however you want to, sisterhood, however you want to word it. We're
Amy, you
going to
need
be
to
getting those.
explain to the audience and Jonathan what you're talking about.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, Jonathan and everyone who's just now tuning in, to be completely honest with you, I read a lot of romance stories. I read all my clients' books. Okay. So, I read everything under the sky. But Russell is new to that sisterhood arena. And
I'm totally
so,
ignorant, Jonathan.
so
That's
when
the perfect way to be.
so when he was traveling, he was seeing all these tattoos. And I was like, yeah, romance readers and authors will get tattoos of their favorite book cover or quote or a mashup of them together.
And
And
I
so
called her a liar.
he did. And he was noticing them when he was traveling, and he still is noticing them. So it is like a legit thing. But I have a lot of friends within that writing space and that just arena. And so one of them has agreed to come on to give Russell all of the answers that he is wanting because he saw, we were talking about, the whole thing started when he was talking about a book festival over in India, and it's, making all these waves. And he had asked about when we were going to get one here. And this whole debate started. But he saw one that was going to have a tattoo artist. And I was like, it's a romance book convention. And that's when everything kind of started going head to head, because at romance conventions is probably one of the only places you will find tattoo artists, is because that's where romance readers get their tattoos, is at these romance book conventions. So it's a whole thing
And I
that has
still
blown
can't
his
believe
mind.
it. And I've seen it.
Yeah.
And are they permanent tattoos or temporary tattoos?
No, they are permanent. And there's
See, he
one,
can't believe it either.
I know, Run Little Mouse is one. Lights Out has a lot. It's, a lot of
Lights out.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them stem from like dark romance, bully romance, as Russell has newly discovered.
Yeah,
Friends
I
to
didn't. But there's
enemies.
a thing. There's a difference, Jonathan, between dark romance and bully romance.
Yeah,
I don't
Oh,
know what it is. They're going to explain it to me, but there is.
it's so there's a lot of subgenres within romance, right? And
Mhm.
there are a lot of subgenres within those subgenres. And so we are going to do a whole just enlightenment for Russell over here so he can understand it, because it is a very fascinating genre. And I'm in a lot of the romance groups to promote authors and those kinds of things. And there are just a lot of, like I said last week, unhinged readers. I am one of those that, the more pages of trigger warnings, the happier they are. It just is what it is. So it's dark romance. I would classify it, when our guest comes on, she may classify it differently, is dependent on the trigger warnings, what they are, and how many pages you have, is how dark of a story we're going. So it just
Mhm.
depends. There are some crazy ones. There's taboo. There's all this crazy stuff in there. So me and Russell have
Mhm.
been on this a weekly conversation bit about it, and so
Mhm.
I'm finally going to give him all the answers
So
that
we're going.
he's
So
for.
we're going to have somebody on to explain all this stuff to me, right?
Yeah, she's going to explain it, talk about it. Me and her are probably going to have some really fun conversations that Russell's just going to be like, "Oh my god." So
Mhm.
it's going to be really
I'm
fun.
excited. It's something new. I'm excited about it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's going to be great.
went to Barnes and Noble recently, and that section was just exploding. And
What
then the
section?
series, the romance, with
Right.
all the different
But
genres.
there's not a multi genre of bully because I went over and looked.
You have to go to dark
Mhm.
romance, Russell. You have to go to the dark romance section, and those covers
There
look
is
super
no
happy.
dark romance section of those
Okay, the
bookstores.
I'm going to go to
series,
Barnes and Nobles today, and I'm going to take a photo, and I'm going to send it to you and been like, "This is
And you
the
should post
unhinged
it on
section."
After Talk because I went. But what really shocked me, members of my family were like, "Oh yeah, they knew all about dark romance." I was stunned. I was
Well,
stunned.
you learn a lot about family that you don't, you wouldn't have known. You
Yeah,
learn a
but
lot
I've
about
known these family members a long time.
it. Hey,
Okay, I
you
need
don't
to
judge
thank
people
our
by what they read.
listeners so then we can get on to Jonathan's book with Valerie. We have, we're like top 10% on some podcast channels. We're top 1% on a few. We're very grateful about it. When we first started getting on podcast channels for 6 months, I never could find us. Then Amy changed a bunch of things and we became available. Amy, how do people find us on the podcast channels?
Yeah, so you guys, it's not a cut when I say Russell can find us. Literally anyone
It's not a
can. It
cut.
is a legit thing. I don't miss those text messages. Okay. But you can find us anywhere that you can look for a podcast. So my go to is Amazon Music, Spotify. I'm an Android user, so Google Play. If you are an Apple, it's iTunes. Good Pods is another one. You can also catch us live Monday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. It gets uploaded afterwards. But over on our Facebook group that you can come and engage with us, our YouTube channel, any one of our social media channels, you can come and hang out, ask questions. They'll be answered live in time. We love engaging with you. And if nothing else, you can see the video and how animated me and Valerie are. I talk a lot with my hands. It's just my kind of thing. And Russell likes to say, I don't have a poker face, but I control what comes out of my mouth. So it's, one of those things. So if you want to have a good laugh with us, at us, we're probably laughing at ourselves too. Come on over to any one of those and join it. But we get to talk some amazing authors like Jonathan himself. So Valerie, let's get Jonathan talking about his book and AI and everything that goes with it. Take it away.
So, Jonathan, let's talk about how did you get into this genre for first of all? Because your new book is "Who Do You Want to Be" is a children's book.
That's right. That's right. And to be clear about the AI and non-AI aspects, I wrote the text and AI did the illustrations, Chat GPT and Dolly specifically. Um, I'm an associate member of the Society of Composers and Lyricists, which is based on having written a musical about Trump, of all things. There's a backstory to that, but in any case, they have sort of little exercises that you can participate in if you want, where they pair up a composer and a lyricist. And so we were talking about, okay, what do we want to? We're supposed to do a kid's song. What do we want to do? And both of us have had these very ping pongy careers. And I said to him, well, why don't we do something about, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And so I wrote the lyrics, and he wrote the music, and there's a song. But I realized that if I put each occupation, spaced out the lyrics on a separate page, I could have an illustrated kids book, except that I don't know how to illustrate. Now, it's about 100 illustrations, about 60, 70 of them full page illustrations. Would have been about $15,000 or more to do those illustrations with a human illustrator. It's just not something I would have done. So I didn't put a human illustrator out of work by doing this. I want to be clear about that. But AI, of course, does train on existing work. And so when I do get into profits on this book, I'm giving 10% of the profits to a nonprofit, the Society of Children's Book Illustrators and Writers, because I do feel that although the law doesn't seem to require it, and there's some court cases now that have been bubbling up, I do feel that training material ought to be, people ought to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
All of us as writers or illustrators, if you're an illustrator or composer, whatever it is that you do, learn from pre-existing work. And that's the same thing the AI is doing. But there's a difference in scale, which is that, I have 4 or 5 major influences: Lewis Carroll, Dr. Seuss, Tom Lehrer, who actually just died, who's a singer-songwriter, Pollution, Wear a Gas Mask in a Veil, blah, 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 in the 60s. And maybe a little bit of Gilbert and Sullivan. Now, even if that was all under copyright, my being influenced by them would not be a copyright infringement. But I'm influenced by 4 or 5, and I've encountered 1,000, 2,000 works in my life, whatever the number is, depending on what you count. But AI ingests billions, tens of billions of works, and there's a difference in scale that does potentially endanger human creativity. So for that reason, I do feel that there ought to be some kind of legal regime that would compensate people whose material is used as training material.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the subject matter, how did that happen?
Well, again, we both had these ping-pongy careers, and so I was sort of like, well, why don't we do something about how do you decide what you want to do for your career when you grow up? And the assignment from SCL, the society, was simply to do a kid's song for kids either 0 to 6 or 6 to 12, something like that. Beyond that, you had to come up with your own topic. And because both of us, me and the composer, had, as I say, I started in tech. I was a math and science kid in high school, got involved in tech, worked in computers, including early AI stuff. Decades ago, I worked at a computer store when there were only 6 or 8 computer stores in the entire world. One of my summer jobs during college, they became the first .com ever registered. My first job after college, I worked for a company that invented the internet, the ARPANET, under contract with the Defense Department. So I was very early, pretty early on in what we see, what we're living today. But I got involved in local politics and gay politics, and was asked to. I spearheaded a gay civil rights law. Was asked by city councilor to write the law, even though I'd never read a law in my life. And that's kind of a whole story in and of itself. But that led me to apply to law school, and then moved out to LA. So I had this political career, this tech career. Moved to LA. I'm a lawyer. I accidentally became a journalist, been an adjunct professor, uh, and now I write creatively as well as nonfiction. So that level of ping ponginess, as I say, and just sampling careers almost led very naturally to subject matter.
I feel like that applies to a lot of us as and I know you said you're a math and science guy, but you're also a creative and then evolving into all these different careers. Just being able to grab on and share your talents has been a great, I'm sure, just growing path for you and your creativity. Can you, how do you feel that now that you've, produced a children's book?
It's very satisfying, and some of the feedback I've gotten from parents uh, has been, my daughter has tons of kids' books, and this is always the one that she pulls out of the pile. Which is just really uh, great to hear that. I mean, very heartwarming. Um, just as likewise with the journalism. So concurrent with my law practice, I wrote for the Hollywood Reporter for 10 years, wrote about 1,400 stories. Um,
Mhm.
and then more recently, I wrote for Puck covering the strikes in Hollywood 2 years ago. Um, I appear in the media, like as I'm doing right now. I've appeared in the media over 1,600 times, and I'm actually writing a media training book, pair of books. That'll probably be the next two that I'll come out with.
Mhm.
But it's very satisfying when you get feedback in all these different contexts, whether it's a lawyer, as a commentator, as a creative, as a journalist, that you've touched someone's life.
Yes.
That it really makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I've been a journalist as well over 30 years, so I can totally relate to that. So I love though that you work for the Hollywood Reporter. I'm sure you have stories on stories about all your work there. And then what led to just, I guess, the writing component of the children's book, but then just also, but can you share a little bit of history about, your writing experience growing as a writer?
Yeah. So the one of my I'll go back to high school for a minute. One of my high school summer jobs, I worked for IBM, which was the Google of its day, big computer company. And I wrote a program where you could type in an English sentence, and hopefully we still have Valerie. We don't have video. Do we have audio, Valerie?
Yeah,
I'm
I'm here.
sure we still have her.
Yeah, she's here.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm here.
Okay, great. I wrote a program where you could type in an English sentence, and it would spit out a sentence diagram. And that was a great experience in terms of understanding language from a very technical standpoint. And then they asked me to write a report about that they were going to publish. And I send the draft over to the guy that I'm working for. And his first note is, when he sends us back, his first note about 2 paragraphs in is, reader falls asleep here. And it was such a sharp but funny note. And I suddenly understood. I'd gone to a great high school, with writing and all that kind of thing, but English. But I suddenly understood, the true communicative aspect of writing and of speaking,
Mhm.
of course, by extension, in a way that I hadn't before, and the importance of flow and humor and clarity and things of that sort in writing of all sorts. So
Mhm.
that's one thing. And then flash forward when I was blogging on the Huffington Post, they asked me to blog on their platform before the Hollywood Reporter gig. I get this email uh, shortly after the 2007 writer's strike had started and all of Hollywood had gone dark. And all productions were all shut down. And this guy writes, "Thank you for your balanced and fair coverage." And I'm looking at it.
Mhm.
I'm not a journalist. I'm a lawyer who's blogging. But okay, whatever. Um, I'm the production sound mixer on such and such a show, or at least I was until 3 weeks ago when we went dark because of the strike. Now I don't know what's going to happen to me and my family, but at least thanks to you, I understand what's going on. And you're like, Jesus. I mean, because I had no idea that you could touch someone's life, as I say, in that way, and it's just humbling and complimenting and gut wrenching, sort of all at once.
Yeah, I think as writers, we don't realize that how far our words, excuse me, reach in general, just and the impact they can have on just any kind of situation, like your book, like your reporting, or just even, whatever you're doing. Russell, did you have any questions as well?
Uh, I want to know. Uh, I'm really interested in your working for the variety too. What's your stories there? How did you start working there? What what was your subject assignments? I mean, were you one particular area or the other? And uh, did your friends give you grief about it? Were they impressed about it? What's this? Give us a little bit of the inside story
Hold
on
on,
that. I'm dying
Russell,
for
the
it.
word you're looking for is, what was your beat? That's the
Okay,
journalist
what
word.
was
What
your
was your
beat?
beat?
Thank you. See, I don't. It's you're for the professional, not me.
Yes.
Sure. So, um, 2007, 2008, the writers struck for close to close to half a year, I guess, 4 months, 5 months, something of that sort. And I started blogging, and then the HuffPost asked me to blog on their platform, and I started speaking to the press. And then when the strike started, I just it blew up. I mean, I sometimes would do a dozen interviews in a day, and people were reading my stuff to the extent that the Los Angeles Times stopped quoting me. And I said to him, Richard, why don't you quote me anymore? Because we had enough of a relationship. I felt comfortable pushing him a little, asking that. And he says to me, because you're a competitor. And I'm like, Richard, what are you talking about? I'm a lawyer who's blogging. And he's like, no, you're breaking news. People are reading your stuff. I'm not going to quote a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what? And then after the writer's strike settled a few months later, the Screen Actors Guild refused to do a deal on the same terms in terms of new media and internet and all that that the writers had been striking over and they had settled on, and the directors had settled on. And AFTRA, the other actors union, they now merged. It's SAG-AFTRA, but they were separate, had done two deals on that same template, but SAG refused to, and ended up working without a contract for a year. The president of the union sued his own union. It was just a complete drama. And so once again, I was on television and radio, and you know, it's. I mean, flash forward, as I say, I've been in the media over 1,600 times, and uh, every major national outlet in the country, basically, and every major outlet in Los Angeles as well, and a lot of other outlets around the country, around the world. Um, the wire services, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the networks, CNN, et cetera. And then that settled, the SAG thing settled in 2009, and I worked at compiling my blogging into a book. It was a 600-page book, kind of a doorstop. But it does sell some copies because it's called Hollywood on Strike, and of course Hollywood went on strike again 2 years ago. But a year later, I get a call out of the blue from the Hollywood Reporter, and it's the number 3 editor who later became the number 1, Matt Bellamy, who's now the entertainment editor for Puck subscription newsletter, which I also wrote for a year. And he says to me, "We hear that the Teamsters might strike now. Now, those are the truck drivers that haul the equipment. Without the equipment and the cameras, obviously, you can't make a movie or TV episode."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Do you know anything about that?" And I'm looking at the phone, like there's something a little off about this call. Because, first of all, why is an editor calling me, not a reporter? And secondly, do you know anything about that? Like, what the hell kind of interview question is that? So I'm like, no. And he goes, "Would you like to look into it and write about it for us?" Now I'm really staring at the phone because it's 2010. Reporters getting laid off across the country because of the internet and the recession, because of the economic recession. And I'm like, is this guy offering me a job? So I was like, does it pay? Because the HuffPost doesn't, but I'm not going to do freebies to the Hollywood Reporter. And he laughs and he's like, yeah, not as well as being a lawyer, but yeah. And I'm like, okay. And that's how I became a journalist. I'm totally the accidental journalist. And in fact, Muckrack, which is sort of a LinkedIn for journalists, as you know, Valerie, when they found out about this, they asked me to write a autobiographical piece as a featured essay, a featured blog post or something. And I called it The Accidental Journalist because that's really what it was. So my very first story was above the fold, was at the top of the page, essentially above the fold. I pushed Leo DiCaprio to the bottom of the front page, which was like, what? and it was that the potential for a Teamsters strike. And then I got in accidentally again. Actually, got into a closed door Teamsters meeting when they were debating whether to call a strike or not. I was looking for the men's room. They threw me into the meeting, so that was kind of interesting. And I wrote 5 or 6 stories on that, and then I got tipped to a totally different story, and I pitched it to the Hollywood Reporter, and they said yeah, and I wrote several stories on that. And then they asked me if I'd like to be their labor reporter. And so I wrote 1,400 stories, 3 a week, over the course of 10 years. Um, Probably 2/3 to 3/4 of them on the Hollywood unions and guilds, and then the others on entertainment law and general assignment, and, just various other subjects, criminal, high-profile sexual abuse allegation that collapsed, and various other things of that sort. And I had some moments, I had some leaked documents, and I found that the lawyer background was very synergistic with journalism and vice versa, because lawyers in some of these cases, when there were litigation cases that I was covering, sometimes would say to me, I never talk to the press. I'll talk to you because you're a lawyer and you write really well. And then they would send me their legal briefs before they filed them under embargo and ask me for comments. And I'm like, no one else is getting this stuff. So it was very synergistic that way. And by the same token, I made contacts that then were useful in the law practice. So that's kind of the backstory.
Okay, that was a great answer. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I just so tell us about the book is in print and ebook, or how are you marketing it?
So it's paperback, hardcover. It's going to fly in and out, of course, with a virtual background, but you get a little sense of it here. There's the fireman on the cover. So paperback, hardcover, and ebook. Who do you want to be? And here's how it starts. It goes, one day my best friend said to me, who in the world do you want to be? I thought and thought and thought and said, maybe a fireman because their trucks are red. I don't know. That's just a bad reason.
Yes.
Maybe a chef because they cook in season. I could be a lawyer, but that's too boring. My mom does that. She's always snoring. I could be an influencer or even a brand, but that's really something I don't understand. I could work at a factory and do shift after shift, but I'd rather sell neckties or drive Uber or Lyft. I could be a coach in football or soccer, or be a player and have my own locker. And it's, you get a sense of it.
Yes, that's so fun. And I think the kids will catch on because they love the rhyming. They really, really do. And you said you also wrote some nonfiction as well?
Yeah, so I've written a number of pieces of nonfiction. They basically relate to the Hollywood unions. So they're, technical stuff about residuals, which are royalties that actors, writers, and directors get. Bibliography of everything written of substance on the Hollywood unions over the past 100 years. Hollywood on Strike book. And then one that's it'd be of interest to Hobbit fans, actually. It's called the New Zealand Hobbit Crisis. And it was about an attempt to unionize the local actors on The Hobbit when they were shooting that 15 years ago. That turned into a national crisis. The Warner Brothers threatened to pull the project from New Zealand, $500 million project, only 4 million people in the country. The currency fell on the threat. The prime minister went on television every night for a month, and the cabinet ministers and all that. And it turned into a big sort of, capitalist muscle story. And it was quite dramatic, actually. And the book is a quick read. It's short, and anyone who's a Hobbit fan.
Okay, what's the name of it again? I've never heard of that story. I need that book. So what's the name of it again?
Sure. It's the New Zealand Hobbit Crisis.
That sounds awesome. I'm sorry I interrupted, but I
No, I think that's great. That's great. Amy, did you want to add something?
Well, one, I mean, when you said that movie, this was 15 years ago, it made me feel old because I haven't watched The Hobbit. I watched The Lord of the
She's
Rings.
getting
I know.
old. It's not it's a thing.
I'm not talking to Russell. Russell is just this fly. He's just this fly that keeps going. But no, it made me. You just said 15 years, and I was like, holy crap, it's been 15 years. Like, time just when you get older, time just is an illusion, right? But I am curious as to what made you want to write this in a children's book form. And then you already kind of answered saying that, you couldn't do illustrations. So I want to focus on why you went the children's route, because my kids are going to love this book. Like, I've already bought it. I'm excited about it.
Well, thank you.
And the illustrations, in my mind, it wouldn't have clicked to use AI. And so I'm very curious on what your experience was with that. I read, your press release from your publicists and everything. So I want to drift towards that rabbit hole, because that's a rabbit hole that I'm happy in. But those are just my questions, Valerie. I'm good either way.
No,
Well, I think those are great.
that's a great question. And as I said, it would have cost $15,000. Instead, it cost 66 cents total to do 100 illustrations. And actually, more than 100, because some of them I didn't like, and I do redo. It was a $20 a month subscription. Took me about 8 hours. Piece work that out. It's 30,000 to 1 ratio, $15,000 versus 66 cents. I It simply, had occurred to me that this might be an economic way of doing illustrations. And except for the cover where the prompt was somewhat detailed, my prompt for all the other illustrations was just colorful illustration for a kid's book of a female Laura Snoren, a writer, a boutique owner, an actor, an actress, a newscaster, a reporter, a politician, etc. Um, I didn't feed it the verse, that I'd written. I simply said colorful illustration for kids book of, and then the occupation. And the illustrations were great. The style was consistent.
Mhm.
The fact that the characters were not consistent was actually a virtue, not a bug, because you never see, except for in one or two places, you don't see the narrator. But I wanted kids of all diversities to see themselves in the book. So I didn't want a single, hey, here's this character, and here he is as a lawyer, and here he is as a fireman, and here he is as a writer, and so forth. I wanted different races, different genders, different sexual orientations, signals, and it gave me all of that. It was, I didn't have to ask for diversity in general, except that it was a little bit heavily weighted gender-wise towards men. And right before I was ready to publish the book, I took a look and I'm like, oh hell, this is like 2-to-1 ratio guys. This is not what I want. And I went back and regenerated some of the illustrations specifying, female, so that I'd have diversity. And, and some occupations are the gender that would be the gender stereotype. Others are not the gender that would be the gender stereotype. Others there isn't a stereotype. It's just meant to be, it's not like, hey, my name is DEI. It simply is a reflection of what the country and the world looks like. And so that kids will see themselves.
I also have a question, excuse me, regarding formatting. So you had all these illustrations that you obtained, but then did you have to hire someone to format and get your book ready, or you did it? How did you do that?
I did it myself. I used, in this case, I used Microsoft Word for the book interior.
So you're just like copy and pasting everything you've obtained to match your text. So you're doing it all yourself, saving it as a PDF, and then being able to produce it.
Right. I mean, the format for most of the pages is very consistent. I don't know. Let's see if that'll come through. Well, it's not really coming through, unfortunately. But there it is. You'll get a little flash of it. So
Yeah, hold it back further. Hold it back further. Is she
All right.
picking up? No,
No,
that
that's
was
not.
wrong.
No, it
Maybe
has
in
to
front of
be.
yourself.
Yeah, it has to be in front of you.
There you go. Well,
See how the text is in the top half and the illustration in the
Yeah,
bottom half?
that came out great.
Yeah, well, that's the format of most of the pages. So formatting was not hard. Just drop the picture in, have the text, drop the picture in, hit hard page break, and you're on the next page. My page headers were easy because they were just the page numbers. Um, There's a couple of resource items in the book as well that I think parents and teachers will appreciate. One is there's an index of all the occupations, including some categorical indexes like work at home or work in an office, work outside.
Mhm.
So kids can look things up. The other is there's a resource page specifically for parents, teachers, and older kids, um, with links to the U.S. Department of Labor Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is about what it sounds like. It lists all these different occupations, thousands of them, and predicts how many will be needed in 10 years. And then there are equivalent kinds of resources in the UK, Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand. And I have those all on a parent teacher resource page.
So I have a question for you,
Yeah.
just because it's been a hot conversation, with AI coming and a lot of writers using it, even if it's just for, you know, inspiration to get out of a writer's slump or, in your case, illustrations, right? Copyright is a huge thing. So how did you go about copywriting your book, or did you copyright your children's book? What was your process for that?
The text is copyrighted because it was not written by AI. The illustrations are not copyrighted. They can't be under current law because they're completely generated by AI just with prompts. Um, I think that the law is going to have to flex a bit because the tools are starting to become more interactive, so that you give a prompt, you get an illustration, you can then edit the illustration with more prompts and more and more. And the theory with, as of 2 years ago was there's not enough human involvement. You just give the prompt and then the AI is what's doing the illustration or writing the text. But when you have tools that are becoming more interactive, which this was not, I mean, the only thing that I would do is if I didn't like the illustration, my only real option was I would hit redraw and it would give me another attempt and I'd find what I liked. Um, but yeah, the illustrations are not copyrighted. So if someone rips them off, what are they going to do with the illustrations? I mean, there's the law as it's, taught on law school exams, and then there's the law as it exists in the real world. And they don't always converge with each other. Sometimes it's like, I have to say to a client, you're not completely protected on X, Y, and Z, but let's look at the business reality. How many people are really going to do X, Y, or Z?
Mhm.
Burning up legal time for a theoretical exercise is not what most clients
Mhm.
do.
Makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. That was like they had like these whole like not breakout sessions, but like multiple different rooms, right? And like the legal steps to take if you use AI, what you can actually copyright versus what you can't. So I was just curious because you're the first author that I've talked to that has used AI for illustration purposes. So I was just curious as like what your process was, because I didn't go and sit in those. I'm sorry, Jonathan, but like lawyer stuff isn't my thing. So I went to the fun stuff, like, the networking and let's mingle and have a drink. That's where I'm at. Okay. That's where fun old Amy is if you need to find me. I wasn't like, how do you copyright something? That's not where you're going to find
You,
Amy.
you
I
were in the
usually
you were in
call
the
Russell.
party room. You were in the party
Yeah.
break room.
Yeah. If I have a question about law, I'm going to contact Russell. That's what I'm going to do. So that's generally how I roll. But I know that our time is dwindling down, Jonathan. Russell usually gives me an evil eye towards the end of the
I
show. And
did.
it's
You
just,
just ignored it today.
I do. I just ignore it. So that's generally how it goes. But let's do last minute questions, comments, statements to wrap it up. Valerie, I'm going to go to you and then I'm going to go to Russell.
Okay, I just want to say, Jonathan, congratulations on your new book and wishing you the best. I think you're going to do great.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And my
You're welcome.
final question, Jonathan, what are you reading right now?
I am spending more time writing than reading, but I spend time reading the New York Times and the New Yorker. Um, I'm also doing research for my media training books. Um, I do want to give a plug for the three websites in quick succession. One is the website for the book, which is who to be, WHO2B.kids. The other is jhandel.news, and that's E before L in my name. That's my Substack. And finally, jhandel.com.
I love it. That's what I was going to ask you. How can people get in touch with you? How can they find your book? Where all are you, Jonathan? I know that you're everywhere. So I'm glad that you could throw those out because, most people don't. So I appreciate it and I love it. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your morning to come and hang out and chit chat with all of us and enjoy our banter and our talk about these romance enlightenment that Russell is going to get and let us understand and dive deeper to your book, but you as the writer of your book to understand it more. So thanks for hanging out with us this morning.
It's an absolute pleasure. I would be happy to come back and join the gang anytime.
Oh, you are welcome back anytime. So you guys, we hope that everybody has a fantastic Monday. If you're here in Texas, stay cool, people, because it's hot and humid here. So stay cool, but have a fantastic rest of your week. And until next week, everybody, bye for now.